we will let him in. So welcome everyone to our first talk in our series Improbable Talk developed by the Performative Collective. Today, the first talk is held between our dear friend Peter and our dear friend Silvino, and we are welcoming you from Beirut, Lebanon. And now Monica will try to introduce both artists through a presentation done by her, and she will share it on the screen.
We have been preparing a presentation for you. I hope it describes the best way possible the work of both of our participants. So, sorry for all this. This is our first talk. I'm very worried. Here.
It's always good to build up the expectancy of the people.
Well, here it is. Well, this is our presentation. Let's hope it will work. Well, welcome to our Improbable Talks, our first one. Here are participants. Are you watching the presentation, please? I need a confirmation.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Peter the Reuver. I'm checking the Zoom meeting. Okay, well, I will continue with the presentation because we need to make this first of all. Sorry for the. Okay, is the presentation? Yeah, I know that we are having trouble with the live transmission, but I think we will keep on the presentation and I will try to fix later because if not, we will be losing lots of time. Well, okay, this is Peter the Reuver, and this is the description of his work. The work we have just seen. It's a work very interesting, I think, because he is showing a way of expressing through the artistic manifestation. So here we will be checking. We are checking a bit of his portfolio.
Yes, you have made a nice work of it. It's a nice skating here now. And yes, I don't have much to add to it. It's just what for me as a person is very important is to express myself in different things. And then when I have ideas, I want to make things in all kinds of matters. So that's a little introduction.
Thanks. I think I have a question here. Why did you use the title Misfits?
Yes, I used the title Misfits because it's all people who are, you can interpret it as all the black rocks are just the people who conform to the standards, and the two other objects are people who doesn't quite match the common standards, but you can see how beautiful they are, and they can give joy to our life.
Okay, that's great. Here's another piece of reflection. I think all works from Peter are like little pieces of reflection. Over here, I'm gonna read these ones. Two pieces done from 2016 and one in 1995. This one named Ambivalence is, I found this piece of glass a few weeks ago. It perfectly resembles the ambivalence I'm going through. Be smooth and do what society and people expect, the easy way. Do what I feel and act from that, more raw but so risky. And now paperfish. Reading the newspapers makes me feel a fish on the dry. Has the world gone mad? I don't find in this commercial and cruel world, and I don't want to. I am a fish on the dry. A little aquarium for me, another fish on the dry, a protected place for peace. And this is particularly one work that I love so much and has an open question that anyone can answer, Leap of the Stone. The ultimate proof, make your own choice that 1, miracles can happen. 2, years of training sharpen skills. 3, patience is a great gift. 4, suggestion is the master of truth. And 5, every Sunday gives people too much time to waste. And this one is a project that Peter posted like some few weeks ago, and is a purchase he did, an artistic endeavor. He collected 2 works from little children, and I think it's a great representation of what pure expression means. Well, this is the bio. So I don't know if Peter has something to add before we see Silvino's presentation.
No, I think I have nothing to add. I think you have made a very beautiful presentation from it, Monica. Thanks.
Thanks to you for joining us. Well, here we are gonna check some of the works by Silvino. I corrected the surname. This one is in illustration. He's a very talented designer and photographer. Well, we made like a mix of the topics that both of our participants choose, and we asked them to talk a little bit about creation in the views of land and territory, but that's not the only topic. They can talk freely about what they think is most important for them. Here is a collective work that Silvino makes in indigenous reservations. He is part of this community also. And here is, we will see this like teaser of the Minga Muralista. Silvino, can you pronounce the name? I can't.
Okay. Part of my work in that process is the work behind the camera and behind the desk. I help with the development of the tools to the artists to work, and in that I am a catalyst of the process of creation for them. We have a workshop house here at the reservations. It's called Shushita, that it translates golden armadillo, and it is part of a long process of creation by my unek or brother in Asayuwe. No blood related brother, but soul brother, if you want. That is Gustavo Yonda. And I'm not part of the community as it. I'm working with the community, I'm working with him. Part of my heritage came from here. I am in the search of my own heritage, something that was cut due to the violence of the country and the destruction of many traditions among the Aboriginal people. So I am in the pursuit of my own heritage here and supporting another process. So it's Chushita. It's a project we have been developing for 14 years, and now we have a house. And the Minga Muralista was part of the process of paint the walls of the house.
Fantastic. I love this work. Over here, we see chumbes. Is that right?
Yes.
Chumbes, a graphic work inspired in the NASA and MISAC works.
Yes. Chumbes are knitted pieces, long knitted pieces, several meters long, that the indigenous people of the south of Colombia employ to tie the little babies and to carry them on the back or to help them to sleep. Part of the tradition is that if you aren't tied in the right way, you will grow to become not as a rightful person, because that failed during the process. Being a Western for me is an awful practice in so many ways, because that idea of restriction of the movement of a baby, it's very complex for me to assimilate. I respect it, but obviously being a Western for me, it's difficult to apply it in my own life. Many people have told me, do you have to chumbar, to employ the chumbe in the life of your nephew, for example? And I'm not able of that. He's going to sleep however he wants and move all he wants. But it's part of the tradition. I understand a bit. I'm not speaking in the voice of others, but from outside, I understand the way how it works culturally. And I understand also the tradition behind that, because the chumbe has a long tradition that includes math, geometry, history, heritage, but also a very deep connection with the land and with the history of the people. There are specific rules how a chumbe is made, about the symbolism, but also about how the symbols are put together. It's really beautiful to investigate and to learn about that. At the university, I worked about Inca people in a project, so who was my first approach. And now living here, where I am living now, it's a mixture of Nasa indigenous people, Misak indigenous people, Kishu indigenous people, Totoroes indigenous people, and Ampiu people.
Yes.
So it's a mixture of several cultures.
Lots of communities, yes. And here I've also chosen a project that I liked a lot, that was a sort of a lottery with a translation from the tongues of these communities, and also translated to Spanish and English. Is that right?
Yes, that was a work for fears for little kids. It's called, I can't pronounce it in Nasayuwe, sorry. Nasayuwe have 32 vowels, so the pronunciation is
Very
incredibly difficult. So, but there was a project about help with keep alive the Nasayuwe languages, because every indigenous language in Latin America and Colombia in the world is in danger of extinction.
Mhm.
And the Nasayuwe people is developing a really beautiful process of empower the language and keep it alive. And not only alive, but alive and kicking really hard. So they have small nests for the little kids to learn the language and the traditions from young age, from 1 year, 2 years old. So this project was with the ICBF, the institution in Colombia that works with children and family. And we developed the illustration based in isometric illustration, but also we have to work with an indigenous translator. And the goal was to develop in the main language is Nasayuwe, also Spanish, English, and the goal was to employ Braille to people with visual impairment. But we have another of our social struggles in that moment.
Of course.
We couldn't travel to Bogota to produce the pieces in that sense. But it's a beautiful process. Another reservations are trying to work from the same concept. And the more, I don't know how, the more beautiful thing about that is that it's been employed on the houses of the people at the reservations, around the fireplaces, around the kitchen. That's very satisfying. That's what I find more satisfying. Before you display a bit about our workshops of pop-up books, something like that, I am very proud of that process too, because it's working directly with the people in their territory and learning from them and sharing some tools that we think they can improve to keep alive their language and their heritage.
Yes, that's a great labor. Over here, it's a very personal project in photography. It's called Peekaboo. If you want to check, you can go to Silvino's blog. It's very interesting. I love the photographs. They are very, very touching. And here another photography project through the Looking Pixel that was done during quarantine, facing all the struggles, all we know we faced during those times that seem far from being over, and that's very worrisome. Well, and here it's like a very short introduction to the works in general on the reservation. I work with communities, as Silvino has told. And well, over here, another facet that's more about family and values. That is very important also. Well, over here, the social networks where you can find Silvino, and Flickr, Vimeo, YouTube, and Facebook, among others. So I think we are done. I'm sorry for all the trouble before. And well, I think it's time to allow the speakers to have their time to talk. So, well, you can present each other if you want. Each other.
Yes. Bro, I must admit that it's for me not usual to talk about such big themes as we are talking now, so that's a bit of strange for me. So when I hear the role of borders and land and territory, and I read some posts from Monica and Noor about how dreams about dissolving borders and all that kind of stuff. And then I think, okay, but what is it that we really want? I read aspects that I feel very, how do I do, joyful about, respect for each other, that kind of things, and all people having a good life. On the other hand, I think but if the world is one big country and all people are the same and there are no cultural differences anymore, then we will lose a lot of diversity. And I don't know, how do you reflect on that, Silvino? How do you see you work with people and the traditions?
I am a post-structuralist from heart. So I think that some ancient constructs like nationality, borders, some oppressive structures as government or religion are in the way out. But that's from a Western urban perspective. When you travel to other parts of my own country or the world, do you have to confront yourself with another reality? In parts of Colombia, we live in the Middle Ages. Conceptually, we live in the Middle Ages, and I'm not speaking only about concepts like spirituality or something like that. About the people who owns the land. More of the land in my country is in the hands of really few people. So it's difficult to approach from a Western point of view many of the realities here. I was reading about your work, and I love the idea of the joyful experience of the humanity together. But here we live with fear of being killed by the army. We live with fear of being killed by the guerrillas or the paramilitaries or something like that. And even among the indigenous nations or peoples, there are not natural but created by other powers divisions among them. So I have to struggle with that two notions because it's a kick in the ass the reality of my country, and I'm not living in a really particular difficult place. I know that I living in a place of privilege among the places in Colombia outside the cities. I worked in more difficult places where I was working one night. We were really tired, so decided to doesn't work the next night. And the next night, the 8 people were murdered in the place where we were working. So do you have to confront yourself with your mortality, with your goals in life? Do you want to obtain money, or do you want to have some minimum that I don't know, some impact in life? So we choose with my brother to work through art. That was our tool. And sometimes I feel the same that about the joy of humanity together. But most of the time, reality kicks me in the face. It's hard to keep hope. Sometimes it's really hard to keep hope. I don't know if do you hear some news from Colombia, are heartbreaking most of the time, are heartbreaking in many levels. Not only violence, but the source of violence, that is corruption, for example. That week we have some news from our government. Our government is without money. We are a country without money to survive for more than 6 weeks. And how works a country without government? How it affects all the process here and other places. So sometimes you really. One moment, please. The cell phone has its own life. Okay. Okay. So it's difficult here in those aspects, but not everything is dark. People is beautiful. People is wonderful. Small kids are incredible teachers. When I saw your small pieces, the block of wood with the four nails and the other one with the nail, I love that. I deeply love that. That's one of the things that keep me alive to work with kids and to learn from them. But also here at the indigenous communities to learn from the elders, to help to fight in a way for the survival of some knowledge. I also support a project about traditional medicine and traditional products. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I have a tripod, but it's okay. So land, territory, heritage are a burden, but also are the source of joy and hope in many ways. I don't know how do you feel your relationship, for example, with the big land that could be Europe, not only Netherlands, but Europe as a whole, and the challenges of migrations from one country to other, and the challenges of migration from one culture to other. I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Yes, that has been quite a theme here in Europe, of course, because there were many refugees from the other countries, and Europe was not, let's say it in a soft tone, was not very open to adapt all those people. And I have to admit that that's not only Europe as a whole, but also in the Netherlands, there were all kinds of restrictions for which I feel ashamed to keep people out of the Netherlands and keep them in Greece and in the other countries. Everywhere in Europe is good, but not too much in the Netherlands. And that has been a discussion here, and I am not happy with the way our government made that political choice not to embed and open the borders for many people. We did a little share, of course. There are a lot of people here, but as you look at how rich we are here in the Netherlands and how good lives we could have, I think, a lot more people to come to our country. So we are not doing the best example of how people should help each other. And if you look about our borders, we have a few years the European Union, which is working towards a big Europe. Europe as one country, and it's an initiative which has some good things. People can travel between the countries easy, and we have the euro, so it's very easy to pay everywhere with the same values. It makes it easy to sell people, so to sell stuff between the different countries, but it's all pure, in my opinion, an economical thing. I think none of the Netherlands, the people in the Netherlands, does feel really an European citizen. And that's just, I think that.
So Peter just joined us right now. He's in the room. Okay.
Hello.
Sorry for the interruption, and you can continue the chat. And it's really nice to have you guys.
Okay, thank you. So we have that kind of rhetoric right now in our national discourse, and usually I think it's the same in every part of the world. Politicians try to capitalize the fears and the needs of the migrant people, and the fears and the needs of the people on the land, and it's easy to divide us with that discourse. It's a lot more complex to unite us around the needs of everyone, because are the same needs. We have to understand that. And even in the indigenous communities that have a long story of struggle, the rhetoric of xenophobic feelings is really strong, because they have been victims of aggression from the Western world for so many time. So they have a natural and in some way healthy reaction about everything that is foreigner. So I am brown, a word I don't enjoy, but I am a people of color. But for the indigenous people, I am white, and I am white not for the color of my skin, but I am white because I am a Westerner. I came from the Western culture, and there's some reluctance to let me go in certain spaces, and that's natural and healthy, because they have been their lands have been stolen, their lives, their culture, their tradition. They have been victims of so many aggressions. That's a natural mechanism of defense. And now with migration, it's even more complex, because the pressure over the resources, the land, it's really difficult to deal with it. And in the middle of a pandemic, in a third world country, another world. Okay, I don't like the concept of third world, but employ it in this context. We are a poor country, and there are really, really bad guidance, full of corruption, that give birth to another set of problems: violence, discrimination, and other kind of stuff. And the migration and the psychological pressure of the pandemic in the people, it's really hard to deal with. In other parts of the world, it's a bit less difficult to stay in your home for 1-2 months. Here, people live with $1 or $2 every day, and they have to go out to work. They have to go out to eat. They don't have savings. They don't have. Do you work in pensions? Here, the pensions are an illusion. It's something really hard. And if you have to go out to work and the government tells you no, you can't, and you see people that is coming to your country and doing the work you did before, even cheaper, that is crazy, because it's the only option they have. That psychological pressure, it's a time bomb. We are in a moment where the last year we have lynchings of people due to that, and we have ever-growing pressure in our hands, and the politicians are trying to capitalize that, and in that process, they are putting more benzene on the flames. So we are in a interesting an scary point of inflection in our land, to be honest.
Yes. Oh, that's a totally different. On one way, it's a totally different situation than we have here, and I'm after this talk of you, Silvino, I'm so grateful that I can live here and maybe not in the difficult circumstances that you have. But when I look from a broader perspective, the problems are the same. They are worse in your country, but I see the same effects and the same things here in the Netherlands. Here we have a growing number of people from other countries who are who are fighting for the same jobs. We have migration workers from Poland and Bulgaria because there's no work, so they come to us to work, and they will work for less money. And so you see also here the conflicts between the people who already live in the Netherlands and the people who come from outside. And what you see is that it's slowly building up, and we have elections, had elections this year, and what you see is that more and more the right wing is growing and growing, and that's the voice of people who say, "Get them out of here." Yes, I overdo it maybe, but that's the sound that is behind that, and I think that it's building up just like it's building up in your country, and even though the people here have far better circumstances, we have very great health. We don't have to go out every day to just get a few dollars to say to have bread to eat. That's totally different here. That's we have how do I say, maybe a kind of heaven here, but still that's not good enough to get away this pressure between peoples. And I don't know what to do with it, but I do not like it.
I think these kind of spaces are a good tool for that, because it gave us a broader vision of the world. Every one of us lives in our little bubble, and social networks and the algorithms, for example, help to enforce our little bubbles. So we hear what we want to hear, we see what we want to see, and we isolate ourselves from the broader vision of the world. And these kind of spaces, and I think that's one of the tasks and grateful tasks of the art and the artists, even if we consider artists or not, it doesn't matter. There's people who create art all the time and they don't consider themselves artists, so it's a different question about that. But art as I call art as humor. It's a stiletto, that small Italian blade that can puncture in your liver and you don't even notice that you are dying. Art, it's sometimes subtle, sometimes not, but even when it's subtle, it put a seed in your brain, in your heart, in your soul. Here the mistake people will say in your liver, because emotions aren't in the heart, are in the liver. So that seed grows in unexpected ways many times. When do you see something in the streets, for example, a graffiti or a performance? I've been talking with Monica about performance a lot, about the function of photography as a performative art, and you don't know how or where or when that seed will grow in unexpected ways. I was looking to your work, Peter, and I find a lot of connections with you in many things. You have a series about leaves and autumn and plants, small parts of plants. I saw part of a call, a leaf, something like that. And I have an ongoing series for several years of small flowers, parts of plants, or something like that, because I sometimes I need a place to hide, and my place to hide is the garden and the plants, and see the perfection in small marbles. It's called small marbles. And I see that kind of connection with another people that works in different areas. Um, as a designer, and I am part of the neurotypical spectrum. I am a functional autistic person. So I find shelter in math, for example, in fractal work, in geometry, because in a world full of chaos, I need something to grasp, to have a solid foot in something. And for me, it's math, music, something like that. But working here is people. It's difficult for me because I am an ostracized. I'm not good with people in person. I do it for necessity, but it's difficult for me even to not only interact but understand people in many ways. So when I arrive, and not only to work with people that is half me, but work with people from a different culture and who sees me like part of the conquerors, part of the oppressors, and part of the Western world, it's such a challenge. A challenge that usually is resolved with drinking a lot with them. But that's part of the cultural appreciation of many things. Because I understand that liquor, for example, has the benefit of break barriers and self-imposed barriers, because it allows your reservations about many things. And in those small spaces after the workshops or something like that, people that has been working with you all the day open a bit more. And the facades, the masks we employ in our daily lives break a bit, and you can take glimpses of the people behind that. And for me, that's some kind of performance too. I had to learn to perform, to work in a neurotypical world, and as a non-neurotypical man, I have to learn to read in some way. What do you expect from me? And that's something that I relate with land and territory, because for me, bodies are lands, territories to know, to explore, to share. Our skins are part of our borders. And from that conception, I extrapolate the concept about gender. So I started to think a lot about how men, usually my country is full of machismo. The only way men can interact with each other through the skin is about violence. It isn't about hugs, it isn't about a kiss, it's about violence. The only way we interact with each other is about a kick, a fist, or something like that. And it's for me a metaphor on how we deal with our neighbors in the political borders too. In some ways, we forgot that we can share love, empathy, resources, needs, and it seems sometimes that the only way we interact with other countries, other cultures, is about violence. And now I am in a deep dive inside the feminist literature and the construction of patriarchy. And I am in a rabbit hole because ahora now everything is I looking to everything about that lens, and it's complex because now I am conscious that I am other kind of oppressor. I am a cisgender, white passing, straight passing, male. Every one of those labels is a symbol of oppression. So it's difficult, but it's a challenge too.
Yes. Yeah, that's when you say these things, I was especially triggered or had a connection when you say when you shifted the concept from national borders to the border of you yourself or me for myself. I didn't give it a lot of thought, so excuse me if I say strange things, but if I now reflect on myself, I think I have my borders. I do know a bit who I am. That's the easy part. When I go more out and make the borders broad, and I go on with other people's, just on the job, in the city, in the country. I must state that I have a very small circle. I'm not the kind of guy who has a lot of friends, and I have a small circle for people I connect with. But what I try is for all the people I meet, also totally strangers, for just simple things. I'm always say a friendly goodbye when I pass people. And I say hello, good morning, and sometimes it comes to a little talk, and then everybody goes his own way. And that are very small things. These are the only small things I do to improve this world. I have the feeling that that's all I can do, and that's naturally for me. I now live in Nieuwegein, and before that I lived in another city, and in that city it was very common when you met each other, just say hello. It's such a little thing. When I moved to Nieuwegein, when I said hello to a stranger when passing by, they looked at me as if they were afraid that I wanted all kind of things from them. And that's that kind of attitude of a relation between peoples. That's not a very good situation to get more harmonic with each other and build together on a better world when everyone is just looking at its own thing. And yes, I don't know how to express, but there's something for me. If you can only change the very effective the people you meet, and I have to admit that I'm quite jealous when I see you working with this group of children, of this group of people where you are working together on an artwork. I think yes, that for me it should be difficult too, but that must be a great way, and I can imagine that in that way people come closer together. Maybe, as you say, after the work, but I still think even while doing the work. And I'm a bit jealous about that, Silvino.
Here we have a similar experience, and that is related to what Monica wrote in the chat about community. My place of living usually is Bogota. It's a 6 million people city, the capital of the country. There I will be, I don't know, mistreated if I say hello to everyone on the street. It's crazy. But here I am walking to the job because now I'm working with the government of the reservation, helping in a project. And the first thing I learned was to say hello in the indigenous language of the Misak people, and it's beautiful, beautiful. I want to speak a bit about that, because to say good morning, it depends not only of the hour of the day, but the weather, if it's cold or if it's hot. So if you are walking on the street and it's sunny day, you say again. But if it is a cold day and it's morning, you say pichitegan. And I love that idea that the way to say hello changes with the weather, with the temperature of the world. And it's something that they learned because they wanted to create that small space of community with the people, that little bit of respect, and people usually respond very well to that. First, they look at me from head to foot, and okay, and then they answer. Especially the elder people, it's really nice. And I try to say hello to everyone across the way, in Spanish or in Namuiwan, that's the language of the Misak people. And that small bits of community are such a different experience than the experience at the cities. The cities, we are crowded. We don't have a space one with another, and we are so more alone in that spaces. People not only is crowded, but people is trying to protect themselves all the time. Here, people is a bit more open about many things, and that's a beautiful experience, to be honest. That sense of community. And when I am working with the NASA people, I try the same. I try to learn to say hello in Nasayuwe, and to say the colors, for example, in the language or something like that when I'm working with kids. Usually my pronunciation is awful, and they make so many fun of me. It's incredible. The 3 years old, in the first workshop I dictated, I was called Professor Vagina, because my pronunciation, I wasn't telling black, but vagina. And the little kids called me Professor Vagina for 3 hours before I noticed there was something wrong with my pronunciation. And they make fun from me for another week. And that was incredible, because there's something here too, that it's the sense of humor of the people. The sense of humor of the people is incredible. They are laughing all the time, even in the middle of tragedy. They are laughing. At the funerals, they are laughing. They have laugh all the time. They are smiling when they know you a bit, because usually they have a lot of reservations, especially about Westerners. But when they know you a bit, they have worked with you a bit, they open beautiful with you. And I try that. That's my other tool, humor. I try to make to be the clown of the classroom, and people respond very well to that. Not all of them, of course, but some of them work. And I also try to, I don't know, to engage about the needs of the people, because after all, that's my work. No, I'm not going to teach. I'm not going to impose, to tell this is the way to do the things. No, my work is about sharing experiences, sharing needs, sharing knowledge, yes. But sharing is a both ways process. I have to learn, I have to listen. And perhaps that's the more important thing I've learned here, to shut up and listen. Listen a bit. Because when you are an artist, I think that artists, everyone is different, but in my case, I walk a thin line between being absolutely arrogant and don't believe in anything I do. I walk a thin line between those processes, because I need to believe in that what I'm doing have some impact, have some meaning. That even if somebody says it's nothing, what are you doing with that? I have to believe that it has some kind of impact and meaning for somebody. And at the same time, I feel what I am doing is useless. I don't know what the hell I am doing here. I am doing the same that better people than me made before. So why somebody wants to see what I am doing? Why somebody wants to read about what I am doing? And that at the end defines my approach. My approach is about myself. I speak about the world through myself. And here comes the sense of identity. Not only because I need to know a bit about myself, but I need to understand a bit about myself. There are so many social constructs that are transparent, and we don't think about that. That when you start to work, do you have to think about that in different way, and that's a challenge. Now my work with self-portraits and nudity, it's a response to Western objectification of women, but also the actual of the objectification of men. Social stereotypes about weight, about skin color, about a lot of things. As men, we are expected to act in different ways. And being autistic, it has been such a challenge to understand what society expects from me. And I don't know, perhaps is the chance, the opportunity of work outside that Western bubble and work with people of different ethnicities and belief systems that help me to see myself from outside a bit. And it comes against with my notion of territory, because I think we need that too. We need to see other cultures. That's why I love this space. I need to listen from you, your experience in your town, from listen to you, your experience from the change from town to town, but also how is different if you travel to Bulgaria, for example, or if you travel to Poland, or with the history of colonization by Netherlands, how is for you to travel to Africa, to Brazil, to Guyana, or to interact with someone from those places. Because if I am seen here like the conqueror and the colonizer, you will be, I don't know. It's difficult because you have a heritage too of good, beautiful things and awful things as I have. We have the same. the same baggage on our backs. And I think the same that you say, we need to make a small acts of respect, kindness, love, because I think we need to display love. Okay, 10 minutes more. Countdown. How do you work, Peter, with other artists in your country, or with other spaces where do you interact? Not your job, but your creative process with other people.
No, for me, as what I do as an artist is pure individual. They didn't do any collaborations projects of what kind. So this is let's say this is my first try of something of a collaborate way, and I am always reflecting on what you said about how you are searching. I hear you from I'm searching from what I am and why is that and what is it to be white, what is it to be a male, what is it to be, what pressure from society is lying on me. I sometimes feel I am a very simple, maybe a too simple soul. I just don't do that. Maybe you can't understand it. I don't think. And when I look on, I place work on Behance and I read some things of people, and there are always great stories about why they make something, and there's something big, sometimes big studies done to make a work. That's not me at all. And when I read it, I am impressed. I think, wow, that must be art. That's great. You go back and make things, work out sketches and all kinds of things, and then from all that stuff you have collected, you put forward the thing the results you made in your thinking process to share with the others, and that's great. But and I can get very inspired when I hear that stories, but it's not totally not how I work and how I am. I do a walk in the park. I see something. I think, hey, yes, wow, that's it. And then I go. I take a picture, or I do some photoshopping, or I make something in Blender to give, to make the little artwork I have in my mind. Most of the times it is not as perfect as I hoped, but I think, okay, it do the job. I like it. I've had a lot of fun to make it, and I'm always triggered with something positive. That's most time positive things trigger my inspiration. So I write a few positive words or questions with it, and then I place it. So then I'm done. I'm happy. It's out of my mind, and I've made something, and it's for the viewers to read and to look if there's something for them to enjoy or not. And of course, to be honest, I like it when someone gives a comment saying, "Oh yes, nice," or I even more like it if someone gives a comment with which is an answer or fits with the theme. But if there are no many comments, it's okay for me. I don't have any living to make from it. So it's a totally different story, and very deep reflecting on myself. I do not do very often. Of course, I am a quiet person, so I do some thinking, but it doesn't feel like the heavy reflecting you do, Silvino. I am more, somehow I feel I'm more living in the little moments to come and less in the things that build me. And yes, and when I talking, I guess that maybe you can share an experience after this. If you, I can imagine that if you dig a bit deeper in yourself than I do, that you can maybe, I haven't done that, find things which conflict yourself with yourself and makes you be an other people later on in the next moments to come. Have you had such an experience, Silvino, that you did that thought process and got something from it? What changed your life? What made you behave other than before? Does that work?
I don't know if
Silvino, sorry for the interruption. I think we have just 3 minutes, so if you agree, we can move to a next room. So we can end the talk, because I think I have some questions, and I think you need to also end this question that Peter had for you. So if you agree, we can move for the next room.
for me, perfect. I enjoyed the talk.
Okay, so.
Me too.
Okay.
I get the link again, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, the info is in the chat. Give me a second. Okay, I was thinking about that. Monica and I share the same university. So we never met before, we never met in person, but we studied at the same university from the same faculty, different careers. She is from arts and I am from the graphic design. But graphic design has a lot to do with the arts. We are the same faculty. So we have shared knowledge, shared literature, shared education process. And I think that is part of the reason why I write so much about it, because art is arrogant. Western art is absolutely arrogant and white and male-centered. So we have a cisgender, Eurocentric, white, phallic career. So we are struggling with that in many ways. But part of that education includes that do you have to write? If you don't write, your art is invalid. You need to justify what you do. Another kind of art from other cultures, it's feeling, it's the emotion, the moment, that kind of stuff. Perhaps in performative art, do you have more liberty about that during the process of creating the piece? I don't know, you can correct me. But if do you want to present the piece to a project, a museum, a grant, you need to write a lot to justify that. And we have that practice in our systems. That's part of the reason why I have to write about. But there's another part. I never fit in many places. I don't fit. So Monica took part of my labels of my bio because it was complex in many ways, but I think it's valid to speak about that here. I put labels on myself, trying to understand my place in the world. Not because the labels defines me, but the labels helps other to understand things about me, and that makes a bit easier for me some interactions. So if I say I am white passing, that's new for me. That's new, okay? Because I never thought about myself as an artist of color, never. Because in Colombia, I am a white passing man. Even my skin tone is a bit darker than my father, because my father is really white. More white than you, Peter, for example. But I've been working in a project that is called Telephone. I want you to know it. I share the info about it because it's a project between 476 artists around the world. And I think it's a really interesting experience. But that was the first time that someone told me, you as an artist of color. And I never talk about that for myself. And that makes so many sense in so many spaces that I include now in my labels. And that kind of interaction with a broader vision of things helps me to understand things about myself. And I think that helps others to understand things about themselves or about the society in general. So I am a cisgender label I never employed before the last year, when for the first time I worked with a transgender artist. So when I say I am cisgender, I'm not doing it for me only, but it's my way to normalize the label of a transgender person. And that experience, I try to make it part of the everyday conversation without any baggage. So just it's like say I am a man, it's the same thing. And other label I employ, I am middle class. That implies a political statement about capitalism and the state of our society and consumism and other kind of topics. I am a pansexual man. Generally, I doesn't identify myself or my sexual preferences in any space, but I think that visibility is a need in a world that is trying to deny rights for a lot of people. So, and I am also neurotypical man. And that part, the neurotypical part of my identification, is the one that generates why I write and make so much introspection. Because I try so hard to understand why I don't fit, that forced me to try to explain others what I feel or why I do what I do. I think the same. That's a mixture of the both things. The need to try to understand why I don't fit, not necessarily because I want to fit. I know it's impossible. Every one of us doesn't fit in many ways, but I felt the need to explain things about this, and I am very vocal about mental issues, about gender issues, because I think we need to make the effort. We have privilege. The simple in Colombia, the simple fact that you have the internet connection to be in this chat is privilege. I have the privilege of an education. I have the privilege of a decent living wage. I have a lot of privilege. And first step for me, understand that I have that privilege. And second step, try to do something with it, because there are so many persons in the world, in this country, that suffer all the time for the people that have privilege and employ to oppress others, that I think we as human beings, not as artists, as human beings, we need to step up, stand up and say, I can try to change this in some ways. And the reason why Monica removed the pansexual part of my bio was because here in the ancestral communities, historically, they have a beautiful history of people with transgender people, androgynous people, people with what in North America we call cisgender or two-spirit people. Here the names were different, but the impact of the Catholic religion was so extreme that all of that was erased from the culture. And now I've been working here for 14 years, and I've never met a gay man, a lesbian, or a bisexual person here. Never. Why? Because it's erased from the culture. And that kind of erasure is a form of aggression so deeply rooted in our culture that it's harmful. So I try to speak about it from, I put myself in the center as a shield for others that can do the same. But I have the recommendation from the people I trust more here to not include that in my bio when I work here, because I will become a target, and a target of violence actors, of the army, of the guerrillas, of the paramilitaries, and that's a risk I can't afford, and I can't put myself in risk, because not only I am in risk, I am putting in risk the family with whom I live, the family with the people with whom I work. So it's so easy that say it's a free world. I can say whatever I want about myself because there are consequences in many places. And now I am thinking about that, about if I, as a Western white passing man, have to deny part of my existence for security reasons, how hard it must be for an indigenous woman or an indigenous man to be erased in every facet of the culture. That must be awful. And I am in that conundrum. I really don't know what to do. It's a really hard place to be, but I know it's a lot harder for everyone who is in that position here. For me, it's easy. I go back to home. I'm in the city. I can say whatever I want, and even in the city, I am in risk because we have a lot of violence against all kind of differences, racial, social, cultural. I am an atheist, and I've been death threatened because I am an atheist for people. So
Yes, it's I am I am nearly shocked to take that glimpse in your country, which is so different and so much more extreme. Are indeed countries where you can and don't even dare to say what your feelings, your real feelings are. And yeah, that impresses me. And and from that way, I can better understand that you do a lot of thinking and going around such themes to to pinpoint it better and to give it a better place and to also to be very careful in what way you can do something with it and in what way you better can't do something with it. Thank you for your explanation, Silvino.
Mhm. Yes, and we are one of the more progressive countries here. So you can imagine. Okay, we are a progressive country. We have a constitutional code that has working now is more conservative, but for a long time was working really hard for grant several rights, the right to abortion, for example. And that's the other part of the story. I am a man. I really don't understand half of the violence that exists in this country because I am a man. I am a big man, not huge man, but a big man for my country. And I don't have the fear of being a woman. I don't have the fear of being on the street. I don't have fear to be raped. I don't have fear to be mansplained all the time. And there's a lot of other kind of violence, and in the social communities it happens a lot, but in every space, my sister is a doctor, a surgeon, and at the first class at the university national, we studied with Monica. One of the teachers told her, I don't know why all of you women are here. Women can't be doctors. In the end of the 20th century, a doctor says that. So there's a lot of levels of violence that I don't feel. I don't understand. So, and that's the beauty of the experience here. I have to learn to shut up and listen my mom, and listen the woman here, and listen awful stories about rape here, and impunity about rape and sexual abuse and mental abuse, economical abuse, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, and I have to listen and question myself. And after I question myself, I have to question my friends. I have to say to my bro here, and we had beautiful, complex conversations about gender, for example, and about transgender issues. And I'm not the perfect person to speak about that. But part of my inner process is to speak about that because we have silenced the people with that experiences. And as a man, we have the unjustified power to amplify voices. So I try. It's difficult for culture. It's difficult to doesn't speak for others, but the challenge for me is to amplify others' voices. So when I speak from the perspective of indigenous community, I'm not speaking in the name of. I am trying to amplify what they have told me and what I felt from there. When I speak about transgender issues, I'm not trying to speak and put my voice in the place of the voice of a transgender person. So it's trying to amplify their voices. And in social media, it's the same. I have to block all the people here from the small town that follow me in Facebook, for example, because I speak a lot about gender and sexual issues in my Facebook, and I put posts about that. And people started to harass the family where I live. So I have to block all the people around here and don't speak anything about that. Or mental health, for example. I speak a lot about mental health because I am a bipolar person. And I speak about depression and about the need of healthcare and medication or things like that. And people started to think that I would be mistreated here, that I was in some way, my mental health issues came from the family where I am living. And that level of ignorance about mental issues or kind of stuff forced me to close what I'm trying to do to protect others. And I think about your doctor, something that I noticed here in Bogota. Maybe you can share a different experience. But I think that some of the it's okay is being politically correct, but not is something that hard. Because I notice a lot of people that say it's okay, I support the movement, I support the rights, I support. But when you are going to speak about adoption, but if you are going to speak about pensions and going back to your area of expertise, here we have a fight about the pension of the partner of a lesbian couple. Now we have the right to marriage for marriage, for example, but it's in paper, not really in common day life. So I think that many of the acceptance it's only from your lips outside, not in your heart. Especially for the older generations, I think. The new generation, and that's what Monica wrote about visibilization. The new generation feel that so normal, so part of their lives that they don't have problem. But older generations might have problem about everything, to be honest. Last week we have a discussion about euthanasia, about the right to end your own suffering. And once again, for 20 years, it was passed on the Senate and the Congress. We are again with that legislation about one of our rights, that is end our suffering. And for example, something that adults said about they don't have electricity all time. Something do you think are granted? But here, for example, we have 2 or 3 days that we have interruption on the electricity, and I am living in a privileged place. Other places don't have electricity at all. And even here, we don't have drinking water all the time. So things that do you consider basic human rights, from physical needs to emotional or social needs, we give it for granted around the world. And when do you travel a bit, do you understand your privilege? But do you also have to take action with that privilege? Because if we don't employ that for something good, what the hell we are doing here? What do you think about that, Peter?
Yes, I just have to admit that the most problems and how serious those problems are is not in the reach of my personal experience. And I can't really do much about it, and I'm happy that it's not my experience. And let's state that I wished everyone could have my experiences in the other way. So that is. Let's say it in another way. It's this talk we have is for me of great value for opening my eyes far more for the problems which don't exist here on this side of the video, let's say. So that's of great value for me, and I don't know what I now can personally do with it, except better understanding your position, and I guess a lot of other artists who will join this initiative maybe it helps me to get a better connection with them as we are going to brainstorm about things or work things out. Yeah, that's it for now. Which is my first and honest reaction to what you told me, Silvina.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think maybe Noor has some questions. I don't know if he wants to ask you something.
Hello, everyone. I mean, it's really nice to hear from you, Silvino, and from you, Peter. And I think like I have a lot of things in common with Silvino in the way that we live. I mean, sometimes we don't know the privilege that we live in until like you see other people's story, and that's totally fine. And you know, as artists, like nowadays, artists do not care about promoting a message rather than just getting likes and followers on social media just to say that, hey, we exist. But I mean, like when I saw both of your portfolios, I felt a great message and I could just learn more about you as an artist. And I didn't look at how numbers did you get. So my question to you is like, how do you start, like if your identity is really important for you as an artist, how's the process when you both want to start your projects?
Do you want to start, Peter? My cell phone died.
Okay. Yes, I guess it will, my answer will be a very simple answer. I'm not doing a very lot with, of not let's say not conscious a lot with my identity to give guidance to my artwork. And of course, some things of my identity will certainly define what I make, but that's, I guess, more the positive the positive thinking effects that I have in mind that come through in my artworks. And yeah, I guess it's not. I guess the story from Silvino will be a lot more interesting because he has a lot more of his identity which he puts in and drives his artwork. For me, it's not a great factor.
I thank you so much. I think it's been a great conversation because you both have brought like the two. I don't think that those are opposites, but two different perspectives from the way creative approaches develop. And I think I feel identified with both because for me it's like I'm in the middle. I'm like a same. I liked the very heartfelt, very joyful approach. I love the Peter works because of that. When we started talking, it was like a communion of thought because he is very joyful, and I love that view of life. And also, I share the background and the strong sense of the fight and of resistance that Silvino shares. And I think it's that those are the two very important aspects of artistic work. So thank you so much. Now I don't know if Silvino can answer the question. Are you there, Silvino?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry for the, well, it's purple, a good color for me. So, identity, well, I spoke about that a bit before, but I think that my sense of identity is a need. and round it, trying to understand my place. And trying to understand that in so many ways I don't have place because our society is very, very ostracizing for people that is different in different ways. So that understanding has been part of my process of try to understand why my differences are so difficult to accommodate in our society. But also, I don't think I am an activist in any way, but I think that art has a responsibility in different ways, not only to display another ways of life, but to think about it, to explore it. And usually visibility of minorities of any kind, it's so little in our mass media that the only spaces we have for that are academics and art. And that's a big burden for both areas of expertise, but also that gave us tools for that kind of experience and challenge, because it's a challenge. Because my photographic work, for example, it's difficult for me to explain why I am naked in front of a camera, knowing that I feel deeply troubled by that exposure of myself. But there's something raw, something visceral about the need of question things about myself and about my place in the world. And for a long time, I fighted about that kind of open myself to the world. And now in some way, I embrace it because there have been some people that have wrote to me about how important my work has been for them. And that is really a nice feeling, but a nice challenge. And came from the same experience. I am a visual artist, so I watch and I look for the work of many artists all the time. And I notice how much it speaks to me and how much it means to me. One of the artists that I admire more in the world is Felipe Toledano, for example. He has a series about the loss of memory of his father and how he has to live again every day the death of his mother, because his father every night forgets that she passed away. And that kind of openness in his work and expose something so personal about his family, about the grief, the pain, inspires me in many ways to create that project of photography. That is Memento Mori. That is my dealing with the murder of my baby bro. And it's probably the most personal project for me. And it's difficult for me to explain why I need to speak about something so personal that the murder of my brother. I really don't know why I need to speak about that, because in some ways it's catharsis, but in some ways I think that it can help people struggling with the same kind of feelings of despair, of loneliness, of guilt, because I have big guilt for don't be there when he was murdered, and something like that. And art is, it's not only for others, no. The first experience of art is for ourselves. It's part of our language. We speak about our body, about our camera, about our pincers, about our sculpture, about how do we look at the world. And something that said Peter about I see something and that's it. I do that all the time, but I have the burden of the academics, and after that emotional process, I have to write about it. I don't know why, because in some way I think that if I don't write about it, it's only anecdotic, and in some ways less quote unquote artistic and intellectual, and that's part of the problem that I see with art, at least traditional art in Western culture, that it isolates people instead of open bridges and open ways to speak. It isolates people because people think if I don't have the intellectual background, I can enjoy it or I can express my opinion about that. And that's part of the Western institutions, museum, university, that kind of institutions of power that monopolize the discourse are part of the responsible that people usually doesn't enjoy contemporary art, for example.
Yes, that's true. We are very thankful with you. We don't want to take more of your precious time. And I just wanna say that you are great. Thanks, really. We really thank you for this opportunity to get to know you a little bit more. Thanks. I've personally seen the work of Peter and Silvino, and I love both of works because those are great approaches to what means art becoming life. And I think even in their huge differences, those are both approaches to that, to art becoming life. And also I must tell that both of them, even if they aren't, I think both of them are performers, and I love their performances. I love Peter's performance, and I love all the photographic work that shows that performative quality of Silvino. So thank you so much. We appreciate a lot this conversation. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have done, and thanks. So many thanks. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for you two for the preparations, and Silvino, very many thanks for this talk.
Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for your experience and your approach, and thank you for Abdul and Monica and all the team. I know it's easy to establish this kind of connections and projects, and I admire you a lot for that.
Thank you so much for your words.
My project last time, the one of the looking pixel is inspired for both of you in some way, because I saw your interaction and your performative process through webcam, and that inspired me to the notion of unite artists through the same media in the pandemic. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and let's keep the conversation going.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we will meet in the panel discussion. We are waiting for you to join us on, I think, 29th of April. It was really a pleasure to learn from your experience and to go through your work, and see you soon. Thank you so much for the connection.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.